resources in facilitating the understanding of environmental challenges and enabling intervention to reduce, mitigate, or adapt to environmental risks and harms. However, such technologies also have environmentally detrimental impacts through the extraction and depletion of natural resources, energy consumption that contributes to climate change, water consumption, and pollution, including electronic waste. And there is increased interest, and it's very timely, and this is something that we need to consider very carefully, in ways to develop a circular digital economy with greater use of renewable energy, more environmentally efficient infrastructure and devices, the repair and reuse of devices displacing this early obsolescence that we are accustomed to now, and more intensive recycling of digital equipment and components. And monitoring and measurement, these are also critical for success. So this is the second big message of the Secretary General. Now, let me put a plug for UNCTAD here. I think, as many of you know, UNCTAD's flagship Digital Economy Report 2024, written in my division, tackles this issue of environmental footprints of the digital economy. So please watch out this space, and the report will be launched in June of this year. So many of these issues also will be followed up in this report. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, nearly 20 years have passed since the WSIS established a framework for international action to take advantage of what were then relatively new digital technologies. And these years we have witnessed significant advances in the use of digital networks and services and in their impact on almost every aspect of our lives and of the social, economic, and cultural development of our countries. As the SDGs report suggests, it is essential to recognize the pivotal role that WSIS plays in guiding international efforts towards inclusive and sustainable digital development. The WSIS Plus 20 review needs to consider how far the world has reached since WSIS, reflecting on what has been achieved and what remains to be accomplished, and to question or to start thinking on how to achieve aspirations for the future and to avoid risks along the way. To conclude my statement, I wish to convey our gratitude to all stakeholders who work tirelessly on the implementation of WSIS outcomes at the national, regional, and international levels. As the focal point of the UN for Science, Technology for Development, the CSTD has the responsibility to provide them with an inclusive space for the consideration of today's and tomorrow's digital challenges and opportunities, and so that we can together build consensus on our common future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shamika, for this report and for calling our attention for the work which is ahead of us, and in particular the resolution we are going to discuss tomorrow. Probably many of the ideas will pop up in the resolution as well, and I look forward to have you contributing to the success of our negotiations tomorrow. Thank you again. And now I would like to invite Mr. Ángel González Sanz, Head of Technology, Innovation and Knowledge Development Branch, to introduce the outline of the WSIS 20 review report by the Secretariat. Ángel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I'm very pleased to present to you some preliminary information about the preparations of the substantive report that the Secretariat will produce to support the CSTD discussions on the WSIS Plus 20 review. In the interest of time and considering the very heavy agenda that you have in front of you, my intervention will be very short. but an informal paper with detailed information about the report and the process leading to it has been circulated to the member states, and it's also available on the website of the CSTD, and I would invite you to take a look at it. As you know, the CSTD has had a major role in reviewing progress in the implementation of the WSIS outcomes since 2006, when it received a mandate from the ECOSOC to undertake this work. The General Assembly in 2015 agreed to organize a high-level meeting in 2025, which is what we call the WSIS Plus 20 review, to take stock of progress of the outcomes of WSIS, to identify areas of continued focus and challenges, and to contribute to the review of the Sustainable Development Goals that will take place in 2030. This review will be informed by a number of international events, including the WSIS Plus 20 Forum that is going to be organized by the ITU, UNCTAD and other agencies in next May, and by the negotiation of the Global Digital Compact and the Pact for the Future by the General Assembly later this year. The zero draft of the GDC has been now published, and you will receive a briefing on this topic and have an informal discussion this morning. Member States welcomed the roadmap presented by the Secretariat at the 26th session of the CSTD, which proposed a work program to prepare the WSIS Plus 20 review and invited voluntary financial contributions to enable its implementation. This program of work has been endorsed by the ECOSOC, and the roadmap, which sets out a provisional work plan whose final scope would be dependent on the extra budgetary financial contributions, is supposed to include a number of stakeholder consultations and lead to the preparation of a report by the Secretariat that will be discussed at the 28th session of the CSTD in 2025, prior to the submission of the CSTD's input to the review through the ECOSOC and to the General Assembly. So far, we have had already a full discussion of the process of the review that took place at the intersessional session panel of the CSTD in Lisbon last November. Following that, we have had consultations at two international events. One took place during the IGF annual meeting in Kyoto in October, and another one took place during the UNCTAD E-Week that was held here in Geneva in December. We also issued an open invitation to contribute inputs to the review that was published through the UNCTAD CSTD website and also through the website of the ITU. We have received very close to 150 submissions, and a preliminary report on the materials that we have received through the questionnaire is included as an annex in the paper that I just mentioned. We have also signed a memorandum of understanding between the CSTD Secretariat and a member state to provide financial support for this review. This will provide sufficient resources for the work program that I will describe in a moment. Of course, any additional work would require also additional extra budgetary funding. Let me say a few words about the timetable for the work that lies ahead. As I mentioned, the roadmap that was approved by the Commission and then endorsed by the ECOSOC included the organization of a number of multi-stakeholder consultations, and we have already scheduled these in all the regions of the world, in most cases in collaboration with the regional commissions, and this will take place starting next May with ESWA and concluding in the month of November. In parallel, we will undertake a literature review and research and analysis in preparation of the report, and we will report on the outcome of all this work during the intersessional panel that will take place in October or November this year. At that time, we will start the drafting of the report, which will take place roughly in the last quarter of this year, with the expectation to have a final draft in the month of February, ready for submission to the 20th session, where it will be discussed by you, member states. Following that discussion here at the Commission, the draft will be revised, and we expect to submit it to the ECOSOC in May and to be able to present it to the General Assembly in the last quarter of 2025. As it was the case with the WSIS Plus 20 review that we prepared in WSIS Plus 10 review, that we prepared in 2015, it is proposed that the outcome of the Commission's discussion on the WSIS outcomes should be included as its resolution submitted to the ECOSOC, and that the report prepared by the Secretariat will be submitted alongside the resolution as a Secretariat document. Member States of the United Nations will be invited to make further written contributions and to submit publications to the review, setting out their experience of the WSIS process of implementation, the developing information society, and their priorities for the future. The United Nations agencies and other international organizations that submit inputs to the regular reports on the implementation of WSIS that are submitted to this Commission will also be invited to submit overviews of the developments in their areas of competence and mandate that have happened since 2005, and particularly since 2015, alongside with their annual contributions. The WSIS Plus 20 Forum that will be held, as I said, in May 2024, and particularly the meetings of the various WSIS action lines will be another source of inputs that will be included in the report, and they come, as you know, from a very broad variety of stakeholders. The Secretariat will monitor activities and events related to the WSIS Plus 20 that are organized by other UN entities, as well as the preparation and outcomes of the GDC and the Pact for the Future. Many critical issues within the WSIS action lines are concerned with the impact of the information society on different development sectors within the SDGs. So we intend also to hold several online multi-stakeholder consultations focusing on different thematic areas, as opposed to the regional consultations that I already mentioned before. This, for example, will address issues such as e-government, the digital economy, the environmental and the gender impact of information technologies. And all this will, of course, be organized also in collaboration with the relevant UN entities that are working on these themes. The extra budgetary funds that have been made available to the Secretariat by a member state, and I think it's only fair to express our appreciation to the Government of the United Kingdom for the generous contribution, should be enough to support the preparation of a report of about 40,000 words, which should make, we believe, a substantial contribution to the review that will be undertaken by the General Assembly. This report we expect to be built on the literature review that I mentioned before and the consultations, and to address three broad sets of issues. The first would be to assess the changes that have taken place since the summit, and particularly since the WSIS Plus 10 review. In critical aspects of the information society, for example, obviously in the technology area, but also in terms of services, of access, and of inclusion of the digital economy, developments in digital governance, and human rights. And all of this from the angle of the impact on global development, including particularly areas covered by the different action lines that were adopted in WSIS. The second set of themes would be a review of the stakeholders' perceptions on the areas where we have achieved success and where we still have challenges that emerge from the experience of the different group of stakeholders regarding WSIS, and what are the opportunities and risks that arise from this, and the priorities for the future that each of the different stakeholders identify for the future ahead. And the last group of themes would be a consideration of the impact of the emerging new technologies and the future evolution of the information society, and what this means for the WSIS outcomes, the action lines, and the SDGs. A preliminary outline of the report is also included as an annex in the paper, the informal paper that is available in the website. As I indicated when I referred to the timetable, we propose that the draft of the report will be drafted following the conclusions of the negotiations of the Global Digital Compact and the Pact for the Future. And we intend, again, I repeat, to present a progress report on the literature review and the consultations during the 20th meeting of the CSTD next fall, so that we can present a comprehensive and fully completed report to this Commission in the next annual session. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Angel. I would like to recall that with this +10 review, the report from the CSCD was considered by the General Assembly as the most important document, which was very much appreciated and expressed in the resolution of 70/125. So I'm confident that we are going to do as well as we did 10 years ago. However, as you mentioned, Angel, we are very much thankful to UK for the contributions, but we would like to ask other member states, please do help us to make this report and make the whole review a success, and to make the CSTD as relevant as it used to be, as it is right now. So probably your contribution would help in that aspect. Thank you again, and having said that, I would like to turn to the panelists. First, I would like to call Mr. Jorge Cancio, Deputy Director of International Relations at the Federal Office of Communication, Ofcom, Switzerland. Jorge, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I hope you hear me okay. Good morning, Excellencies, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And really, thanks very much also for the introduction. It's very, very useful, very informative. There's plenty of information we have still to analyze during the coming weeks and months in this review process. As you know, Switzerland has been a keen supporter of the WSIS process since the beginning. Actually, when we had the privilege of hosting its first phase here in Geneva, 2003. And I was just remembering before, when I had my coffee, that 20 years ago I was sitting there in a PrepCom 3 before Tunis, a bit younger at that moment, but very hopeful in the work of WSIS. Things that then only existed on paper, now 20 years after, when we look back on that, on what we achieved, of course, nothing is absolutely perfect. It's always different to what we expected. But if we look at what we have been creating during these 20 years, we have a very delicate, very balanced architecture with different agencies working together in the WSIS action lines here in the CSTD, assessing the developments every year, and working together with all stakeholders in the WSIS forum when we are talking about the implementation of the action lines, and discussing all things policy on digital governance in the IGF, not only at the annual event, but in the rich intersessional work we have. So it's not something that we could set to aside. It's a lot that we have created during these 20 years. Of course, we have to look at the development of digital technologies and their uses, and see what needs to be done so that all people, and that's the ultimate goal in the world, can benefit from them, and risks are minimized and nobody is left behind. We must, of course, identify new issues and related opportunities and challenges. And we've been doing this during these 20 years. If we look at the agendas of our meetings now and how they were in 2006 when the follow-up started, there has been a huge evolution, of course. And the same goes for the WSIS forum or the IGF agendas. We have to look nonetheless how we can improve our cooperation and how the global internet and digital architecture can be further developed beyond 2025 so that all people can seize the opportunities and the risks are minimized. Switzerland is convinced that WSIS, with its vision and the inclusive approach of cooperation among all stakeholders in their respective roles, has worked well. The WSIS architecture, including CSTD, the leading UN departments, agencies, as well as the WSIS Forum and especially also the UN IGF, offer useful platforms and mechanisms to further international cooperation. I'm very much looking forward to the final report about the WSIS Plus 20 review. We made a substantive submission, which I hope has been useful. And in this sense, we think that these institutions we've created with WSIS are ideally placed to ensure a meaningful follow-up and periodic review of the agreements we achieve amongst other places in the negotiations of the Global Digital Compact. We can take our cooperation to a next level on these issues and also emerging questions like what does meaningful connectivity mean nowadays? What do we need about data governance? How do we go about artificial intelligence governance? What do we do about the intersection of digitization and the climate change and environmental challenges? And of course, addressing any other future emerging topics. We therefore would like to work with all of you in order to strengthen the WSIS process and its architecture and update them into a WSIS Plus, fit for purpose to address the opportunities and challenges of our digital world. What does this mean? Well, it's up to us to discuss how we want to update the WSIS architecture into a WSIS Plus system. For us, we see some aspects that we have to work on. First is to strengthen our multilateral system, in particular of the UN specialized agencies as facilitators, updating the CSTD as the system-wide focal point for WSIS follow-up, strengthening also the WSIS Forum as the forum to assess progress made in achieving the WSIS goals, especially through the action lines, strengthening the IGF as the biggest global multi-stakeholder platform to discuss all issues related to internet and digital governance, and also, of course, strengthening the multi-stakeholder approach itself, making it even more inclusive, more accountable, and more impactful for the people on the ground. In this regard, we think that NetMundial Plus 10, which is happening in a couple of weeks in Sao Paulo, led by our Brazilian colleagues, is an important milestone. And we strongly support there the development of a sort of a protocol of protocols, some sort of guidelines that may serve as a guideline for establishing and developing multi-stakeholder processes. We look very much forward to that event. And following this, we have another milestone, the WSIS Plus 20 Forum high-level event, which will take here in Geneva at the end of May, which is the next important event in the run-up to the WSIS Plus 20 review in autumn 2025. We, Switzerland, are very proud to be able to be co-hosts of this event with ITU and all other partners, and encourage all stakeholders to come to Geneva or participate online and make their voices, your voices heard in this important event. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jorge, and thank you for Switzerland to be so committed to the WSIS process. And I'm sure the contribution you have made will be very much studied and included in the report. And thank you for the proposals you have just made. Let me turn now to Ms. Carol Roach, Chair of the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group of Internet Governance Forum. I understand that she will be online.
Distinguished participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be here with you today at the 27th session of the Commission on Science, Technology for Development, an important meeting that, among other reviews system-wide, the progress made in the implementation of the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society at the regional and international level. I take this opportunity to thank the organizing committee as well as the Secretariat of the Commission for convening us all here in Geneva and myself online. I am Carol Roach from the Cabinet Office of the Governor of the Bahamas. I was appointed by the United Nations Secretary General as the new chair of the Internet Governance Forum Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group. At today's meeting, many stakeholders who are present greatly support the IGF in various capacities, either as participants, expert contributors, session organizers, speakers, but also donors. I want you to know that we are immensely grateful for your valuable participation and support. To those who have not yet taken part in an IGF, I warmly invite you to join us in our annual forums. It is stakeholders like you who make IGF alive, relevant, and needed. I've been entrusted with the crucial task of leading the IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, or the MAG, in assisting the UN Secretary General in the programming of the annual forum and its intersessional work. I am taking my role particularly seriously as we are at an important moment in the internet and digital space, given several important processes happening. UN member states continue negotiating the Global Digital Compact, aiming to have it agreed upon during the Summit of the Future in September 2024. These processes have a huge global impact, and it's therefore crucial that all parties keep apprised of what is happening and be fully involved by putting their positions forward. I had the privilege of speaking to the Latin American and Caribbean missions in Geneva, informing them about the IGF as well as the impact of the Global Digital Compact. As you may know, the IGF is one of the major outcomes of WSIS, mandated by the Tunis Agenda. Currently, in its third mandate, the IGF and its mandate extension will once again be a critical aspect of the upcoming WSIS Plus 20 review process in 2025. Considering that the IGF 2024 takes place prior to the review process, it will mark a significant milestone of 2 decades of progress made in the implementation of WSIS outcomes. Building on the foundations of great achievements of the WSIS process and with those of the IGF so far, This critical review process presents an opportunity for continuity and progress toward the aim of people-centered and multi-stakeholder approach to global digital transformation. We must nurture the WSIS legacy and historic achievement of integrating the multi-stakeholder model for governance of the Internet and digital into a traditional multilateral process. The MAG is committed to protecting the strengthening of multi-stakeholder, open, inclusive, and people-centered model of Internet governance. In this mission, we are particularly focused on engaging missing voices, particularly stakeholders of all disciplines from the Global South. We have strong partners to achieve this. For example, thanks to a growing network of 170 national and regional IGF initiatives. These originally created and independent initiatives provide a multi-stakeholder platform to discuss digital policy issues of communities at local levels. Youth is our present and certainly our future. Perspectives of youth leaders have continuously been integrated in the IGF program, and their participation has been strengthened in IGF activities through the development of a strong youth track. We've also, within the MAG, created a youth working group on youth engagement, and they are so active, and we are happy to have them. We must ensure cooperation and collaboration with everyone across sectors. As one of the many IGF capacity development initiatives, over 420 lawmakers have successfully been included in key digital policy discussions in the IGF parliamentary track since 2019. As part of the IGF intersessional work, you have the IGF policy networks, best practice forums, and dynamic coalitions have committed to provide in-depth expert views of decision makers on various digital governance topics, such as artificial intelligence, always following the bottom-up multi-stakeholder approach. I encourage persons to visit the IGF website and to see the outcomes and reports from the intersessional work. These efforts of the past 2 decades led to a record number of over 9,000 participants at last year's IGF in Kyoto, Japan, who participated in over 300 sessions. And as the Prime Minister of Japan rightly said in his welcoming statement, by bringing together participants from all over the world from different perspectives and bringing together their wisdom through a multi-stakeholder approach, we can maximize the benefits of the Internet while reducing risk. That said, I would like to share with you some information about this year's IGF. The 19th Annual Forum will take place from the 15th to the 19th of December in Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, under the overarching theme, Building Our Multi-Stakeholder Digital Future. The program will be shaped according to 4 sub-themes: harnessing innovation and balancing risks in the digital space, enhancing the digital contribution to peace, development, and sustainability, advancing human rights and inclusion, improving digital governance for the Internet we want. As a leading hub for tech development and digital entrepreneurship in the MENA region, we are working with the host country to ensure that the 19th IGF is a success in terms of stakeholder engagement and program equality. In our efforts to build capacity and increase participation of key decision makers, we will also launch a judiciary track. With the rapid advancement of technology, we aim to provide extensive support to judges for well-informed decision making. We are also working with partners to further engage the private sector, as businesses are valuable actors in advancing digital transformation. In my role as chair of the MAG, I invite you to cooperate and collaborate with us. Join us in working together as a strong IGF that stands for good multi-stakeholder digital governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. First of all, thank you for the work you are doing, and thank you for the IGF Secretariat as well, the excellent work they have been doing. And I'm happy to observe that the recommendations which have been developed by the working group of the CSTD on the improvement of the IGF have been implemented. And not only implemented, but you are going to exceed all the requirements we have put forward. So thank you again. You are doing a great job, and I hope many of us will be able to make it to Riyadh for the upcoming IGF. Now let me turn to Ms. Nur Sulina Abdullah, Chief Strategic Planning and Membership and Special Advisor to the Secretary General of the ITU. Ms. Abdullah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you to the organizers for inviting ITU to join you in this session. I will try to build on what the previous speakers have presented and share ITU's perspective on WSIS, in particular, where we are today. First, recalling how 2 decades ago, the global community came together to embrace the transformative power of ICTs by adopting the Geneva Plan of Action and the Tunis Agenda. These milestone agreements laid the foundation for our collective understanding of the significance of inclusive participation from all stakeholders in leveraging the benefits of the digital revolution. It also led to the establishment of the IGF and the WSIS action lines. And in the slide, you can see the governance mechanism of WSIS, which is comprehensive. Through our mandates, we continue to expand the WSIS activities. After 20 years, these are some of the key achievements of WSIS. It has emerged as a strong example of global digital cooperation with impressive results. WSIS has cemented the multi-stakeholder model. The IGF and WSIS Forum are shining examples of how different stakeholders come together for a common purpose towards digital development. These are inclusive platforms and provide an equal footing for all participants. There are frameworks to systematically discuss the evolution of technology and its implications from various perspectives, for instance, health, ethics, security, e-government services, education, etc. The WSIS Forum has brought UN agencies to the table and given us a basis to create a framework for collaboration. Today, the UN Group on the Information Society, or UNGIS, has 39 members and counting. UNGIS continues to play an important role and recently delivered 2 statements in the GDC informal consultations before the Zero Draft came out. The action lines have withstood the test of time and continue to be relevant. They provide a robust framework for digital progress moving forward. Today, after 20 years, the process has proven to be flexible and continues to evolve to stay abreast of new and emerging technologies. All this shows and filters down to one clear message, that the WSIS mechanisms have all come together and are there to be leveraged. In planning to move forward, it's important for us to consider the numbers which will help us visualize the magnitude of what WSIS has become since it came into being. I'd like to share some facts and figures to show you how far WSIS has come in the last 20 years. Just to recall that WSIS started off strongly with over 11,000 delegates in 2003 and more than 19,000 in 2005. Even back then, when the internet and internet penetration was nascent, WSIS brought the global community together to navigate the challenges of bridging the global digital divide and increasing the internet accessibility, especially in developing countries. The WSIS Forum turns 16 this year. Up to last year, some 120,000 plus participants have participated in the WSIS Forum, on-site and virtually, from 160 countries. Each stakeholder plays an important role and contributes to the rich discussions that have led to successful partnerships and collaborations during the forum. In terms of gender distribution, we started off 20 years ago with under 30% of women delegates. Last year, we achieved 45%. And let's see what this year brings. We're getting there. According to ITU's latest facts and figures, there is a 5 percentage point disparity between the number of men and women using the internet at 70% men versus 65% women. The WSIS stock-taking database is a rich repository of case studies, best practices, and use cases. To date, it has 13,000 plus cases, all aligned to the SDGs, with over 2 million subscribers today and counting. These are the numbers of projects, of cases, and initiatives by action line, some cut across several action lines, of course. In terms of internet penetration, although the growth is attributable to many other factors, this is where the world stands today, at 64% as of 2023, with 5.4 billion people online, which means 2.6 billion are still not connected. I'd like to share some information about the WSIS Forum in May. The 2024 edition, as was mentioned previously, is called the WSIS Plus 20 Forum High Level Event and will take place from the 27th to the 31st of May in Geneva. This year, if you are registered for the WSIS Plus 20 Forum, you will also be able to attend the AI for Good Global Summit, which will be held on the 30th and 31st of May. Both are being convened at the same time to bring the two communities together, forging synergy and to enable us to learn from one another. There is an interesting intersect between the WSIS Forum and AI for Good on the 29th of May, when AI Governance Day takes place. The afternoon session is open to all, and I invite you to join us. The focus this year will be on the next phase of WSIS beyond 2025. The WSIS Plus 20 review is the opportunity for us to take stock and consider how best WSIS should further adapt so that it will continue to address new and emerging digital challenges and opportunities and consider how the different processes complement each other, WSIS, GDC, the Summit of the Future. To plan for the future, we will of course look back to our achievements, challenges and opportunities, look at the wells and the not so wells. There is an exciting program that has been planned and that is available online. At the end of the week, we anticipate to have session outcome documents and the important chair's summary, which we anticipate will be brought to the Summit of the Future and the UNGA overall review next year. These are some of the thematic areas in focus: the action line facilitation meetings, discussion on digital governance processes, WSIS beyond 2025, gender mainstreaming, a youth day, and the rest of the areas as you can see from the slide. For over 2 decades, WSIS has been a hotbed of collaboration, uniting governments, international organizations, the private sector, academia, and civil society. Each year, we celebrate multi-stakeholder cooperation through the WSIS prizes, which have gained prestige over the years and recognize game-changing projects and initiatives. These projects serve as a testament of the transformative power of digital technologies in improving lives and livelihoods. Since 2012, the competition has attracted over 5,000 submissions from 112 countries over the span of 13 years, and there have been 234 winners and 576 champions. This year alone, we have received 1,050 submissions from 104 countries. 90 champions have just been announced, and on the 28th of May, we will announce the 18 winners. The WSIS Photo Contest invites the community to picture how digital is playing an enabling role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Since 2017, we have received almost 1,400 submissions, announcing 473 finalists and chosen 26 winning photographs. These amazing photos are available on our website, and we invite you to use them in your presentations or your publications. They have certainly given me a lot of inspiration for my slides. Collaboration forms the bedrock of meaningful advancement, and ITU is very grateful for the solid support and robust partnerships which we have created with our UN partners, including UNESCO, UNDP, CSTD, and UNDESA, working together as one. On a joint preparatory process for the WSIS Plus 20 review, We have also contributed to the CSTD questionnaire for the 20-year review of WSIS implementation and appreciate Angel's comprehensive brief earlier. I leave you with a snapshot of the WSIS Plus 20 prep process, which started last year and will continue all the way to the UNGA in 2025. I'd like to acknowledge some of the partners, as you can see on the slide. There are many others who have expressed interest in continuing their partnership with us, with whom we are liaising now. The WSIS Plus 20 Forum high-level event is co-hosted by Switzerland and ITU, as Jorge mentioned, and co-organized by UNESCO, UNDP, UNCTAD, and ITU. I take this opportunity to thank the co-host of the WSIS Plus 20 Forum high-level event, the Swiss Confederation, for their strong support and commitment to the WSIS process. Without their commitment and generosity, WSIS would not be what it is today. I also recognize our co-organizing partners and colleagues, UNESCO, UNDP, and UNCTAD, who have been unwavering in their partnership with ITU in bringing WSIS to the world. In closing, I would like to reiterate that the UN process is UN mandated. It's a well-functioning, multi-stakeholder process for digital governance. Its mechanisms such as UNGIS, IGF, and the WSIS Forum and others have proven to be robust and flexible, and the process can continue to evolve for future needs. Should be leveraged to the maximum to avoid duplication and wastage of resources, especially in the context of other UN processes. The role of WSIS cannot be overstated and is an important one as we move ahead. The previous speakers have touched upon the impact of technologies moving forward. 20 years ago, many described the internet as a civilizational tool. Today, we are still discovering new things that it has to offer. Today, we have generative AI and all that AI has to offer. Today, there is quantum to consider and the potential of space and space technologies. Now, having said that, upon reflecting on the past, we are optimistic for the future and urge all stakeholders to harness the momentum of the WSIS Plus 20 review to build a digital future that is inclusive, sustainable, and beneficial for all. At the end of the day, our shared goal is to leave no one behind. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Abdullah. It's a remarkable presentation, and I'm sure that many of us recall that the WSIS concept, the WSIS has been proposed by the Plenipotentiary Conference of the ITU in 1998. And since then, ITU has been always the torchbearer of the WSIS process. And I'm really very grateful to ITU for the new proposals and the active participation. Now let me turn to Mr. Cedric Wachholz, Chief for Digital Policies and Digital Transformation, UNESCO. Cedric, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Peter. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues. I wish to thank CSTD for inviting UNESCO to this high-level panel on the progress made in the WSIS outcome implementation. This discussion not only allows us to assess our collective advancements, but also to recalibrate our efforts in aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals and addressing the very dynamic landscape of global digital cooperation today. 20 years ago, when the WSIS first convened, the digital divide was a significant concern, and it remains so despite tremendous advancements in connectivity and technological adoption. From a time in 2002, when only 1 billion people had internet access, we have grown to 5.4 billion, as Suline from ITU just highlighted. And this growth brings to highlight not just opportunities, but also still substantial challenges that require our urgent attention and concerted action. The digital ecosystem today is actually unrecognizable from that of 2 decades ago. Innovations such as artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, blockchain, and in a few years, quantum computing hold the potential to accelerate progress in all WSIS action lines and towards the Sustainable Development Goals. However, The rapid pace of these innovations also present significant challenges, such as human rights challenges, ethical dilemmas, privacy concerns, the risk of increased inequality, and significant gaps in digital literacy and access, to name a few. UNESCO, in its mission to build peace through international cooperation in education, the sciences, culture, communication, and information, has a vested interest in ensuring that these technologies serve to unite rather than divide. We advocate for a balanced approach where technological advancements does not come at the cost of human rights, cultural diversity, social equity, or environmental sustainability. The WSIS vision and the broader agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals cannot be pursued in isolation. They require the seamless integration of our efforts in a distributed network of platforms and frameworks, bringing together all actors in a multi-stakeholder approach. This is especially pertinent as we navigate the implications of the Global Digital Compact and the outcomes of the upcoming Summit of the Future. Our strategy must be harmonized to amplify impact and to avoid duplication of efforts, of responsibilities, and institutional setups to ensure that we are globally aligned. At UNESCO, we are lead facilitating 5 of the 11 WSIS action lines. We are actively engaging in hundreds of activities that directly support the WSIS outcomes, beyond the very important and visible WSIS Forum and IGF. Let me highlight just 4. First, the promotion of Internet universality and Rome-X principles. We advocate for an internet that is human rights-based, open, accessible to all, and nurtured by multi-stakeholder participation. And the X in the Rome-X refers to cross-cutting issues such as gender equality and environmental sustainability. This framework was adopted by 195 UNESCO member states. It was multi-stakeholder shaped and is crucial for fostering digital inclusivity and ensuring that the internet remains a global public good. Secondly, our support for open solutions. Through the endorsement of the 2021 recommendation on open science and the 2019 recommendation on open educational resources, we support open access to scientific knowledge and educational resources. This is vital for fostering innovation and equitable access to data, information, and knowledge. Thirdly, advocacy for human rights-based and ethical standards in AI. With the adoption of the first global standard-setting recommendation on the ethics of AI in 2021, UNESCO has been at the forefront of defining frameworks that ensure AI developments are aligned with universal values and ethical standards. Fourth, capacity building and policy support. Recognizing the critical need for enhanced digital literacy and competencies, UNESCO has been supporting member states to develop policies and strategies that empower civil servants, the judiciary, and parliamentarians to navigate and leverage digital transformations effectively. Looking ahead, UNESCO invites you all to the Global Conference on Digital Transformation and Capacity Building for Civil Servants to be held at UNESCO headquarters on 18th to 20th February 25. This conference will provide inputs to the WSIS Plus 20 review at the UNGA and will be the first global WSIS event following the Summit of the Future. UNESCO clearly sees WSIS as the way forward to implement the GDC outcomes. We advocate at the same time for a renewed WSIS vision. UNESCO speaks beyond WSIS Plus 20 about WSIS 2.0. A rebooted WSIS 2.0 would adapt its mechanism to advance and measure implementation while it continues support for the SDG implementation, addresses contemporary challenges, and fosters digital governance and capacity building with explicit focus on gender equality and the environmental impact of our increasingly digital world, as Shamika highlighted also so well in her introduction. The WSIS 2.0 vision aims at enhancing WSIS role and guiding digital cooperation, facilitating idea exchange across the action lines for a more coordinated and comprehensive approach to today's digital transformation challenges. In close cooperation and coordination with our WSIS co-leads, the ITU, UNDP, and UNCTAD, and in consultation with the UN SG's envoy on technology, we will continue to refine our strategies to create synergies and avoid duplications of the Global Digital Compact and WSIS processes. The upcoming WSIS Plus 20 Forum high-level event is an opportunity to continue our multi-stakeholder dialogue and inform further the now intergovernmental process towards a Global Digital Compact. In conclusion, the path forward must be one of cooperation and shared vision. We at UNESCO are committed to advancing this process and dialogue, not just in forums such as today, but in every endeavor we undertake. Let us continue to harness digital technologies for the SDGs and mitigate related risks through a global approach that ensures an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable digital future for all. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to these shared objectives.
Thank you, Cedric. We are aware of the great work UNESCO is doing. Just let me mention your initiative about the platform regulations or the ethical part of AI, among others. And we look forward to working with you in the future as well. We came to the end of the speeches from the panelists. Now, let me turn to the special ministerial segment, and let me invite His Excellency Mr. Saqib Bhatti, Member of Parliament, Parliamentary Under Secretary of State, Minister for Technology and Digital Economy, the United Kingdom. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak at the 27th session of the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. And I'm so sorry that I cannot be there in person for what are clearly important discussions. The importance of global cooperation in science, technology and innovation for development is critical in the context of the challenges that we face, whether they're from climate change or in harnessing the potential of emerging technologies. Firstly, I'd like to start by commending the Commission on its crucial role and corresponding actions taken as the focal point for the follow-up of the WSIS action lines. The WSIS vision to establish a people-centred, inclusive and development-orientated information society remains true and highly relevant. And if we are to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals, the WSIS action lines are crucial. This ranges from promoting linguistic diversity and local content to promoting the role of all stakeholders in the promotion of information and communication technologies for development. As the Secretary-General rightly stated in his progress report on the implementation of the WSIS outcomes, the WSIS Plus 20 review will need to consider how far the world has come since the initial WSIS summit in 2003. It will need to assess how digital technologies can support the achievement of public policy goals. Crucially, it will also need to explore how to achieve aspirations for the future. The views of all stakeholders will be crucial in building this understanding. To that effect, the CSTD is exploring two important themes this week: data for development and global cooperation in science, technology and innovation for development, which are both very pertinent to my ministerial portfolio. To achieve our ambitious agenda, we should seek to avoid duplication of fora. This will ensure conversations about digital development, among other digital policy issues, are accessible to stakeholders across the globe. Not least, we should celebrate the existing digital fora that we have, including the Internet Governance Forum. The IGF has successfully brought together people from all over the world together on an equal footing to discuss digital public policy issues for nearly 2 decades. Mention of the IGF brings me neatly onto the WSIS process and the excellent dialogue that we've already heard on this important issue this morning. We are indeed at an important inflection point in our consideration of internet public policy and the governance of the internet. We have come a long way, but we still have quite a journey ahead of us. And it is right to recognise the achievements made since the summits in 2003 and 2005, while also using the review to articulate what more needs to be done. And I spend a lot of my time in my role thinking on this latter aspect. Thus, it is a crucial and critical issue to use this review to articulate a new vision. This new vision must set out where, collectively, we can make a difference, not to look back and rehearse old arguments. The WSIS Plus 20 review process is also an important opportunity to promote the multi-stakeholder model of internet governance. This model has been essential to the development of an open global internet that enables trade and the free exchange of information. And of course, we must not lose sight of the importance of digital development and enhanced connectivity for all, which are central to the WSIS process. This must continue to remain a central focus of WSIS. So in closing, let me stress the importance of the WSIS Plus 20 review, renewing the mandate of the Internet Governance Forum. The IGF has been instrumental in giving stakeholders across the globe a voice in the Internet governance space. For instance, through the perpetuation of its over 155 national and regional initiatives across the globe, giving many a voice they may never have had. So thank you so much again for this opportunity to intervene, and I wish you all a productive week. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Let me thank UK again for the contribution to the WSIS Plus 20 report and your commitment to the whole process. And let me also recognize the excellent collaborators you are working with who are helping us achieving all goals. Thank you again. Now let me turn to His Excellency Mr. Usman Abad, Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Gambia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Moderator, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the UNTAC Secretary General, Madam Rebecca Crispen, for inviting me to the 27th session of the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. We are grateful for all the effort you have made and your team to put in place to make sure that this event is successful. Mr. Moderator, the Gambia welcomed the special ministerial segment on progress made in the implementation of and follow-up on the outcome of the World Summit on the Information Society, WSIS, and discussion on the WSIS Plus 20 review. The ICT are crucial for achieving a sustainable development, sustainable development goals, SDG, and building a people-centered inclusive information society. The Gambia context. The Gambia recognizes the transformation potential of ICT. We have made a significant stride in recent years as subsequently outlined. Increased internet penetration. We have witnessed a surge in mobile penetration for more than 113%, enabling greater access to information and service across all sectors. E-government initiative. We have implemented a people-centered e-government programs and called on provision of timely and effort public service through a robust platform. All these are geared towards significant increasing service delivery and fostering citizen participation in the governance process. WSIS and the 2030 agenda. The digital divide remains as a barrier, particularly for women and rural population. Furthermore, ensuring inclusive and equitable access to affordable ICT requires continuous effort. The Gambia emphasized the need for a strong alignment between WSIS and the 2030 agenda. The ICT are essential tool for progress on various SDG, including education, healthcare, and environmental protection. Similarly, the Gambia government is prioritizing and strengthening digital literacy to ensure rapid uptake and increased participation in the digital economy. The need to accelerate the creation of a digital economy is driving recent government effort to put in place a robust national switch to support MSMEs ecosystem cross-international trade. Distinguished delegates, In order to bridge the digital divide in the Gambia, the government is currently embarking on a key initiative, including the deployment of a second subsea cable to be fully commissioned in 2025, and including the utilization of satellite internet as a viable connectivity source for rural Gambia. On top of these, the ministry has developed an infrastructure sharing regulation and expect to formulate a DIG-1 policy through WADIP Gambia project this year. This would help to ensure infrastructure co-location among MNOs, especially in the unserved and underserved communities. These measures will significantly help to address the digital divide in the Gambia. The rollout of technology hubs across all sectors will also be a catalyst for innovation in rural Gambia. It is worth to mention that the government of the Gambia is prioritizing the rollout of the targeted digital development initiative, including capacity building, digital skill for women, girls, and persons with disability. This will help them empower and position them as active players in the innovation space and digital economy. As part of the effort to be cyber resilient digital transformation process, and also to ensure individual liberty are safeguarded along the way, the ministry is finalizing the formulation of a cybercrime bill, which have been presented to the National Assembly for enactment and will be followed by the data protection and privacy bill. In addition, the government of the Gambia has ratified the AU Malabo Convention in March 2024. Looking ahead to WSIS Plus 20, as we approach the WSIS Plus 20 review in 2025, the Gambia called for the following. We must recommit to the WSIS principles and bridge the digital divide to ensure inclusive information and knowledge society. The WSIS framework needs to be adopted to address the new emerging technology like artificial intelligence and blockchain and ensure responsible development. All stakeholders, government, civil society, and private sectors must work together to realize the Swiss vision for sustainable information society for all. In conclusion, the Gambia is committed to playing an active role in the process. We believe that through collective effort, we can leverage ICT to build a more prosperous and inclusive future. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you, Excellency. I'm sure that all of us are very much impressed by the progress you've made, and the message you sent to us is well noted. Now I invite His Excellency Mr. Ivan Jones, EU Secretary, Department of Information and Communication Technology of the Republic of the Philippines.
Peter Major, Vice Chair of the CSTD, Your Excellencies, esteemed delegates and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant day to all of you. Today, as we convene to deliberate on the critical imperative of fostering people-centric, inclusive, and development-oriented information and knowledge society, I am deeply honored to represent the Philippines, a nation steadfast in its commitment to progress and resilience in the ever-evolving landscape of ICT. Our journey within the World Summit on the Information Society has been marked by significant milestones, emblematic of our steadfast dedication to harnessing the transformative power of digital technologies for the betterment of our society. From heightened awareness of ICT opportunities to invaluable networking with global stakeholders, we have not merely observed progress, but actively shaped it. As we approach the 25th anniversary of WSIS, it is incumbent upon us to reflect on our achievements, recalibrate our strategies, and fortify our collaborative efforts to realize the objectives set forth in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals. The path ahead is fraught with challenges, but it is also illuminated by the boundless potential of digital innovation to drive positive change. In the domain of emerging technologies, particularly artificial intelligence, we recognize both the immense promise and the inherent risk. While AI holds the key to enriching lives, enhancing productivity, and bolstering competitiveness, it also presents challenges such as the digital divide, data security concerns, and the imperative of ensuring equitable access and opportunity for all. The discourse at WSIS serves as a nexus for dialogue, cooperation, and collective action, a platform where nations, sectors, and stakeholders converge to chart a course towards a more inclusive and sustainable future. In this spirit, the Philippines stands ready to share its national initiatives, not as isolated endeavors, but as contributions to a global movement towards progress and prosperity for all. At the heart of our endeavors lies the National ICT Development Agenda, a comprehensive roadmap drafted by our Department of Information and Communications Technology aimed at forging a digitally empowered Philippines. This agenda transcends mere connectivity to encompass economic empowerment, social inclusion, and cultural enrichment, underscoring our commitment to leaving no one behind in the digital age. Our commitment to progress is further exemplified by initiatives such as the establishment of our digital transformation centers nationwide, in collaboration with esteemed partners like the International Telecommunications Union. These centers serve as crucibles of innovation, nurturing entrepreneurship and fostering economic growth while ensuring inclusivity in the digital economy. Moreover, our endorsement of the ITU's Smart Villages project underscores our resolve to bridge the digital divide and accelerate SDG implementation, particularly in the underserved communities. By leveraging technology to enhance livelihood, improve healthcare, and expand connectivity, we strive to create a more equitable and prosperous society for everyone. In a relentless pursuit of digital transformation, we have launched initiatives such as our Broadband ng Masa and Digital Government Master Plan for 2023 up to 2028, aimed at providing ubiquitous connectivity and delivering efficient, transparent, and citizen-centric governance. Our introduction of our eGov Super App represents a paradigm shift in how citizens interact with government services, epitomizing our commitment to leveraging technology for the greater good. In conclusion, let us affirm our collective resolve to harness the power of ICT for the betterment of humanity. Let us transcend boundaries, bridge divides, and forge partnerships that propel us towards a future where technology serves as a catalyst for progress and prosperity for all. Together, let us embark on this journey with courage, conviction, and compassion, knowing that the path ahead may be challenging, but the destination is worth every endeavor. Thank you very much, and all the best to this meeting.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for your encouragement to continue our work. Now, let me turn to His Excellency Mr. Wilfredo González Vidal, First Vice Minister, Ministry of Communications, Cuba. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Señor Presidente, estimados delegados, en la primera fase de la CMCI en Ginebra, los representantes de los países en desarrollo, tras arduas discusiones, consiguieron que se reconociera la brecha digital como una nueva división de las divisiones económicas y sociales existentes, y lograron que este tema saliera del debate técnico a nivel de expertos y se confirmara como un asunto político de interés de la comunidad internacional. 2 décadas después, ha quedado demostrada la utilidad del uso de las tecnologías de la información con fines pacíficos, pero también se ha confirmado que el impacto beneficioso de las TIC es significativamente menor en los países en desarrollo, los cuales continúan rezagados. Los documentos finales de la CMCI contienen acuerdos que fueron meticulosamente redactados y negociados, y cuya plena implementación, transcurridos 20 años, hubiera permitido acortar la brecha digital entre los países desarrollados y en desarrollo. Sin embargo, mucho de lo acordado sigue incumplido, incluido lo relativo al establecimiento de mecanismos para el acceso a fuentes de financiamiento, la transferencia de tecnología y la creación de capacidades para los países en desarrollo. También se incumple flagrantemente las disposiciones de Túnez y Ginebra que llaman a los estados a abstenerse de adoptar medidas unilaterales no conformes con el derecho internacional y con la Carta de las Naciones Unidas, en tanto éstas impiden la plena consecución del desarrollo económico y social de la población de los países afectados y menoscaba el bienestar de sus ciudadanos. Hoy constituye una realidad el injusto orden económico internacional. A ello se suma la inequidad en el pago de la conexión internacional a Internet, que favorece a los países desarrollados donde radican las principales redes troncales. Asimismo, los principales sitios de comercio electrónico se encuentran en los países desarrollados, lo que da como resultado que en Internet el flujo financiero neto va desde el sur hacia el norte, agravando la brecha digital y la dependencia tecnológica. Este estado de cosas, que fue discutido en la segunda fase de la Cumbre Mundial sobre la Sociedad de la Información, permanece sin cambios. Es por ello que reitero la importancia y la vigencia de los resultados de la CMCI, cuya implementación impulsaría la cooperación digital. Debemos insistir en la promoción del uso pacífico de las TIC y la materialización de sus beneficios para el desarrollo y bienestar de la humanidad. Señor Presidente, para avanzar en este empeño es importante reforzar los mecanismos de cooperación internacional y que los países industrializados cumplan sus compromisos y provean recursos financieros nuevos, adicionales y previsibles para la construcción de una sociedad mundial de la información, sobre bases no discriminatorias y con ello dar cumplimiento a lo contenido en las declaraciones y compromisos de Ginebra y Túnez. Asimismo, es necesario reafirmar el papel central de las Naciones Unidas y llevar a cabo las propuestas contenidas en nuestra agenda común que buscan fortalecer el multilateralismo y la cooperación internacional mediante el accionar coordinado de las diferentes instancias del sistema de Naciones Unidas, incluyendo sus agencias especializadas como la UNCTAD, UNESCO y la OIT. Los esfuerzos en curso en materia de cooperación digital no pueden sustituir ni suplantar los resultados de la CMCI, por el contrario, deben coadyuvar al logro de las metas propuestas en la CMCI. Señor presidente, la declaración de principios de la primera fase de la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de la Información estableció una visión común de la sociedad de la información, la cual debería ser centrada en la persona, integradora y orientada al desarrollo. Cuba continuará trabajando arduamente por mejorar y ampliar los servicios de acceso a Internet y de las telecomunicaciones en el país, así como la creación de contenidos digitales relevantes de amplio acceso por nuestros ciudadanos. Creemos firmemente en los valores y mandatos de la OIT y consideramos que esta organización tiene las herramientas y la responsabilidad de continuar trabajando junto a sus Estados miembros en pos de la transformación e inclusión digital para todos. Señor presidente, nos corresponde hacer realidad de manera urgente la visión común de la sociedad de la información que fue avisorada hace 20 años. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Vice Minister. And let me assure you that your suggestions and your thoughts are being taken very seriously. And let me express my gratitude to your delegates who help us to achieve results in this sense. Thank you again. Now let me turn to Her Excellency Ms. Mary Priska Winfred Mahundi, Deputy Minister of Information, Communication and Information Technology, United Republic of Tanzania. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. At the outset, my delegation would like to thank the Commission on Science and Technology for Development, the Secretariat for the outline of the WSIS Plus 20 review. Also, the United Republic of Tanzania, under the strong leadership of the President, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, has demonstrated a strong political will and visions to propel Tanzania into transformed knowledge-based society. Without forgetting appreciating all the efforts to make this event success, I now take the opportunity to provide an update of Tanzania implementation on the World Summit of the Information Society WSIS action lines. The United Republic of Tanzania is implementing new policies and regulations to increase broadband penetration and access, create an ICT workforce, and encourage digital innovation and cross-border digital integration. This has resulted into increased employment opportunities to young people. Tanzania has invested and continues to invest in digital infrastructure, national data center, optic fiber, and the submarine cable. That has increased access to internet service that is transformed digital online platforms for business and public service delivery. This has helped the Tanzania and its neighboring countries moving faster towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The transformation of business and service delivery to digital platforms has enhanced work efficiency and quality of service delivery to meet the needs of the public in a responsive and transparent manner. In this regard, several digital platforms have been deployed in all sectors of the economy, thus health, education, tourism, etc. These platforms enable the identification of citizens, promotion of e-commerce, and online payments for government fees and services. Tanzania is also taking steps to develop a population with digital skills to meet the expectations of digital transformation on ICT human capital through hiring ICT professionals and training them into digital skills. A framework has been developed to identify priority areas for industry and vendor-based trainings, as well as academic and research institutions. Furthermore, the government is in the process of establishing the Digital Training Institute to cater the existing gap of training and emerging technologies, focusing in industrial needs and linkages with the national and other global training institutions with similar focus. Tanzania is also prioritizing developing a robust ecosystem for digital entrepreneurship and is investing in centers for ICT startup, accelerating to inspire society to be innovative in digital technologies. These centers will support digital and digital-enabled innovations, ICT startup companies, and digital entrepreneurs' readiness to entry to market stage. Tanzania has enacted the Personal Data Protection Act for protection of personal data and establishes the principles guiding and conditions for collection of processing of personal data. The Data Protection Act is expected to play a vital part in ensuring the security of data, hence increasing user confidence while in the cyberspace. In ensuring that this act is operational, the government has established Personal Data Protection Commission. With these developments, it is important to highlight how ongoing trends and emerging technologies particularly all enable or hinder the realization of the WSIS vision. Artificial intelligence has gained increasing priority on policy agendas for governmental institutions at both national, regional, and international levels. Applying artificial intelligence to areas such as education or healthcare can facilitate access, overcome staff shortages, and reduce the risks and costs. On the other hand, concerns are growing about increasingly automated and autonomous all systems, widening the technological, economic, and social gaps due to lack of basic infrastructure and human capacity capable of exploiting this technology, especially in countries with large population and or skilled or unskilled labor. It is not a secret that we have all realized the scale of potential, both positive and negative, but we have yet to come together to consider the issues, much less to collaborate on identifying the risks and the agile ways of mitigating them. Further, the World Summit on Information Society should interact with other United Nations processes through stronger international and regional cooperation and partnership. The development of a global digital compact that would set out the principles, objectives, and actions for advancing an open, free, secure, and human-centered digital future, one that is incurred in universal human rights that enables the attainment of sustainable development goals, will certainly need a multi-stakeholder digital cooperation that will shape a shared vision on digital cooperation and a collaboration by providing an inclusive global framework. A framework that will hold and guide states to overcome the digital gap to ensure that all nations work hand in hand in this global digital compact. Last but not least, Tanzania cordially invites you all to join our initiatives to build a digital-enabled society in Tanzania and even outside our borders in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you, the moderator.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And let me turn now to our last speaker, Ms. Siham Trabelsi, CEO of the Tunisian Internet Agency, Tunisia Internet, Tunisia. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased and honored to be here with you today and take part of this panel in order to share with you some insights on progress made in the implementation of the outcomes of the World Summit on the Information Society, with a particular focus on the Tunisian case. As you may know, in 2005, Tunisia had the privilege to host the second phase of the World Summit on the Information Society. In addition to the Tunis commitment, Tunis phase produced the Tunis Agenda, which provided a framework for the implementation of the WSIS outcomes beyond the summit. The agenda addressed issues including internet governance, financial mechanisms for ICT development, capacity building, and follow-up and implementation mechanisms. The main outcomes of the two phases of the WSIS provided a roadmap for leveraging ICT to promote sustainable development, bridge the digital divide, and foster international cooperation in information societies. Even though these outcomes were produced 19 years ago, they continue to guide efforts to harness the transformative potential of ICT for the benefit of all. But since that time, information and communication technologies have drastically evolved, and innovative trends, including artificial intelligence, new generation of communication technologies, blockchain, and Internet of Things, have actually the potential to both enable and hinder the realization of the WSIS vision toward the promotion of sustainable development and the closure of the digital divide. From one side, the realization of the WSIS vision is enabled by, first, advancements in connectivity, which can enhance access to ICT, particularly in underserved and remote areas, allowing greater participation in the digital economy and access to online education, healthcare, and government services. Then the development of artificial intelligence, which can empower various sectors, including healthcare, education, agriculture, and governance, contributing to sustainable development goals. We have also digital inclusion initiatives such as affordable access to ICT devices, capacity building, and digital skills development, which can help bridge the digital divide and ensure that marginalized communities benefit from ICT. Finally, multi-stakeholder collaboration consisting of collaboration among governments, academia, civil society, private sector, and international organizations, which is essential for advancing the WSIS vision. Furthermore, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development can be considered along with the WSIS roadmap as a catalyst for achieving the broader goals of sustainable development, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth. From the other side, hindrances that prevent the achievement of the WSIS outcomes are, first, the technological and access divide, which can be widened if the access to AI, connectivity solution, and expertise remain unequal. Second, ethical concerns of AI, which are mainly related to privacy, bias, and accountability. Then, privacy and security concerns, as emerging technologies undermine the trust in the digital ecosystem and slow down progress toward the WSIS goal of building secure and trustworthy information society. And finally, policy and regulation, which can be outpaced by the rapid technological advancements, raising challenges for governance and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, Tunisia strongly believes that effectively tackling the opportunities and challenges presented by digital ubiquity necessitates the involvement of every nation, all stakeholders, and every sector. The significance of these challenges is heightened in developing countries due to several factors, including infrastructure gaps, economic disparities, education and literacy levels, regulatory frameworks, and limited access to financing. This is why we are convinced that greater efforts are required in these countries in addressing these challenges. This is crucial to ensure they have equal opportunities as developed nations in progressing toward the fulfilling both WSIS objectives and sustainable development goals meant to enable universal and sustainable digital transformation. Since the adoption of the WSIS action lines in 2005, Tunisia made the development of its digital economy one of its top priority and has made several achievements toward the realization of the WSIS outcomes. Multi-stakeholder cooperation in shaping internet governance policies and addressing pertinent issues has been comprehensively instituted at the national level. through the establishment of the National Internet Governance Forum, IGF, since 2012. We are convinced that this approach continues to be the most appropriate one. We recognize that AI is a powerful tool to enable the achievement of the WSIS vision, and we are aware that it should be applied responsibly in a safe and secure manner while preserving privacy and advancing sustainability. A national AI strategy is being prepared based on a collaborative approach in order to implement these principles. We believe that tracking the realization and implementation of the outcomes of the WSIS through appropriate indicators is essential to measure progress. This is why Tunisia is actively involved in the work of international institutions on such indicators such as ITU and UNESCO through the direct contribution to the development of Internet universality indicators, which provides a framework for assessing national Internet environments with regard to openness, accessibility, and multi-stakeholder participation. Being aware of the importance of digital transformation and the associated risks, particularly cybersecurity, Tunisia has updated its cybersecurity legislation in 2023 and has set up a framework for the certification of cloud providers, including governmental cloud and national cloud providers, in order to promote secure and resilient access to infrastructure. Tunisia has also officially joined the Council of Europe Convention on Cybercrime in March 2024, becoming the 70th state to do so. In terms of digital and e-government services, Tunisia made significant progress in making governmental services available online for every citizen and has launched the Mobile IT program in 2022, which is the national electronic identity on mobiles that will ensure a secure and rapid access to administrative services. Finally, we believe that sustaining and improving a framework for global cooperation among nations led by international relevant organizations and providing adequate support for developing countries are the key for fulfilling the WSIS outcomes and the Sustainable Development Goals as outlined in the 2030 Agenda. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Madam, for bringing up the Tunisian perspective. And let me assure you that the contribution of Tunisia is always present. All of us are relying on the Tunis agenda, and we look forward to the contributions to the WSIS Plus 20 from Tunisia. Now, this concludes the special ministerial segment, and the floor is now open for interactive discussion. Please keep your intervention short and no more than 3 to 5 minutes. I would say 2 to 4 minutes. So the floor is open. Belarus, пожалуйста.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Постараюсь быть очень кратким. Прежде всего, позвольте выразить признательность уважаемым докладчикам за интересные и очень обстоятельные презентации. Нынешняя дискуссия, безусловно, имеет особое значение в свете предстоящего в следующем году в рамках Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН обзора 20-летней деятельности по реализации итогов Всемирной встречи. Обзор должен дать реалистичную оценку нашего общего прогресса в деле построения инклюзивного информационного общества, выявить проблемы и препятствия, наметить пути дальнейшей работы в этом направлении. Кроме того, обзор должен показать, как усилия в контексте Всемирной встречи способствуют реализации ключевого документа современности повестки 2030. Приветствуем работу по подготовке к 20-летнему обзору и активную вовлеченность в этот процесс Комиссии ООН по науке и технике в целях развития и других заинтересованных сторон. Несколько слов о работе на национальном уровне по построению информационного общества. В целом, мы исходим из понимания того, что цифровые технологии напрямую влияют на развитие страны, на укрепление ее суверенитета, на функционирование всех отраслей ее экономики, социальной сферы и присутствуют в жизни каждого человека. В этой связи Республика Беларусь в полной мере привержена эффективной реализации всех направлений деятельности по итогам Всемирной встречи. Мы успешно строим инклюзивное и справедливое информационное общество, в центре которого находится человек. При ключевой роли правительства формируется партнерство со всеми заинтересованными национальными игроками с тем, чтобы получить и объединить знания и компетенции для успешного выполнения задач по цифровизации в целях создания эффективной цифровой инфраструктуры и построения современной цифровой экономики. Отдаем особый приоритет теме цифровизации при разработке стратегических национальных документов. Например, тема цифровизации сквозной линии проходит в разрабатываемой сейчас национальной стратегии устойчивого развития на период до 2040 года. В стране реализуется государственная программа «Цифровое развитие Беларуси» на 2021-2025 годы. Данный документ направлен на внедрение информационно-коммуникационных и передовых производственных технологий в отрасли национальной экономики и сферы жизнедеятельности общества. Осуществляем эффективный мониторинг национальной работы по цифровизации. Так, в соответствии с указом главы государства от ноября прошлого года, с этого года в стране проводится ежегодная оценка уровня цифровизации, и на ее основе определяются дальнейшие действия в этой области. Придаем важное значение международному сотрудничеству, как на двустороннем уровне, так и в рамках международных и региональных организаций, прежде всего Евразийского экономического союза и Содружества независимых государств. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Austria.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't. Surprised me. Austria has submitted a comprehensive contribution to the online consultation on the WSIS implementation. So allow me to mention just a couple of points here today. In the past 20 years, digitalization and digital technologies have increasingly shaped every aspect of our societies, international relations, and geopolitics. A lot has changed since 1995. As has been said by the panel, the digital ecosystem of today is unrecognizable from 20 years ago. We now have evidence of the challenges to human rights, the environment, democracy, and the rule of law posed by new and emerging technologies that we did not have 20 years ago. Growing inequalities due to the rapid acceleration of new developments in AI and other emerging technologies, shrinking civil spaces due to technology-facilitated surveillance, and changes in the labor market, such as the quality of jobs, work intensity, and autonomy, to name just a few examples, profoundly challenge the premise of the SDGs to leave no one behind. Emerging technologies, such as AI or quantum computing, have tremendous potential for humanity, but also risk widening the digital and other divides and creating and fortifying barriers to sustainable development, challenging the implementation of WSIS objectives. It is crucial to have effective and smart regulatory frameworks in order for these emerging technologies to serve humanity while minimizing the risks. Fragmentation in the governance of new and emerging technologies, including AI and data, further undermine inclusive digital transformation on a global scale. The related lack of respect for or enforcement of international law throughout the life cycle of technologies hinders the full implementation of the WSIS agenda and undermines the goals of inclusiveness, equality, and non-discrimination. The international community, more than ever, needs a shared vision of a global transformation that contributes to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. A multi-stakeholder approach to Internet governance has proven to be the most effective way to implement the WSIS agenda. This is why we believe that the IGF, with its track record of facilitating inclusive multi-stakeholder dialogues and advancing consensus about policy, should be strengthened, put on a sound financial basis, and established as a main follow-up mechanism for the Global Digital Compact. Austria is fully committed to contribute to strengthening and adapting the WSIS process in order to make it responsive to the evolving digital landscape. We value the CSDD in this regard as an intergovernmental platform for international digital cooperation with a strong development focus. It is well positioned to serve as a link for the follow-up of the Global Digital Compact and the WSIS agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Austria. Now I turn to Russian Federation.
Спасибо, господин председатель, за предоставленное слово. Благодарим секретариат за проводимую работу по оценке 20-летней реализации процесса ВВИО. Вместе с тем хотелось бы заострить внимание на ряде значимых аспектах. Женевской декларации принципов ВВИО ставилась целью создания такого общества, в котором каждый мог бы создавать информацию и знания, иметь к ним доступ, пользоваться и обмениваться ими с тем, чтобы дать отдельным лицам, общинам и народам возможность в полной мере реализовать свой потенциал, содействуя своему устойчивому развитию. При этом задача состояла в том, чтобы использовать потенциал ИКТ для обеспечения более мирного, справедливого и процветающего мира, что тесно переплетается с ЦУР. Развитие отражено в соответствующей матрице ВВИО ЦУР, разработанной МСЭ. Можно смело отметить, что за 20 лет информационное общество прошло этап становления и развития. Однако последнее справедливо не для всех, а в основном только для наиболее развитых стран. Сегодня влияние цифровизации затрагивает практически все сферы социально-экономической и политической жизнедеятельности человека. Учитывая существующее цифровое неравенство, говорить о завершении построения информационного общества на данном этапе явно преждевременно. Концепция ВВИО по-прежнему остается весьма актуальной и востребованной, а сам процесс должен быть продолжен и после 2025 года для достижения ЦУР. Также важно найти ответ на выявленные за 20 лет вызовы и риски, особенно в контексте развития и внедрения новейших технологий, особенно искусственного интеллекта. До сих пор блокируются вопросы выполнения пункта 35А Тунисской программы о том, что политические полномочия по решению вопросов государственной политики, связанных с интернет, являются суверенным правом государств, хотя это было подтверждено резолюцией 70/125 Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН. Международно-правовые механизмы, позволяющие отстаивать суверенное право государств на регулирование информационного пространства, так и не установлены. Глобальное развитие социальных сетей при всех своих достоинствах в обеспечении доступа и обмена информацией не только позволяет безнаказанно нарушать права человека, но и способно разрушить общество изнутри. Особенно опасно влияние на подрастающее поколение, разжигание национальной и религиозной розни, призывы к агрессии и суициду, вмешательство в личную жизнь, манипулирование, шантаж и навязывание враждебных ценностей. В очередной раз подчеркиваем, что дальнейшая реализация ВВИО должна сохранить многосторонний формат работы и осуществляться с акцентом на достижении решений саммита и профильных резолюций, в том числе в части суверенных прав и обязанностей государств в отношении международных вопросов, государственной политики, касающейся управления ИКТ. Необходимо продолжить работу по устранению дискриминационных барьеров при внедрении новейших технологий, обеспечить информационную безопасность, защиту персональных данных и неприкосновенности частной жизни, сформировать понятие цифровой гигиены и другую активность, направленную на повышение доверия к ИКТ. Форумы ВВИО и ФУИ должны сохранить мандат работы. Спасибо большое.
Thank you, Russia. Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me a floor. Last year, Japan hosted IGF 2023 in Kyoto. In the IGF, more than 11,000 people from more than 170 countries and regions registered for the IGF, and more than 6,000 people participate in the IGF in person. This is a record high number in the history of IGF, which indicates that there is a strong support for multi-stakeholder discussion on digital issue. Japan strongly supports the OECS Plus 20 process. We discuss how to maintain, promote, and strengthen IGF for future. In addition, Japan believes it is important for us to have multi-stakeholder discussion on Global Digital Compact, and IGF can play an important role in the follow-up of the IGF. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Saudi Arabia.
شكرا سيد الرئيس، وأسعد الله صباح السعادة والمعالي الحضور الكرام. لا شك أن محور هذه الورشة أو هذه الجلسة في غاية الأهمية، وهو ما يتطرق إلى متابعة تنفيذ مخرجات القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات WSIS Outcomes، خاصة في الوقت الحالي، في الوقت الذي سوف يكون فيه المراجعة لهذه المخرجات في السنة القادمة، أيضا خاصة في الوقت الذي يتم فيه المفاوضة والنقاش الميثاق الرقمي العالمي GDC. لا شك أن مخرجات القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات والنصوص المذكور فيها مرنة وتستوعب الأحداث والتحديات الحالية. فعلى سبيل المثال نتحدث عن الشمول الرقمي، نتحدث عن بناء القدرات، نتحدث عن بناء الثقة والأمن، نتحدث عن حوكمة الإنترنت وغيرها من الموضوعات التي تناقش في أهداف القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات. لا شك أن تم تحقيق تقدم كبير في معظم هذه الموضوعات، لكن ما زال في بعض التحديات في إكمال أو إنهاء بعض الأهداف التي تم التوافق عليها في القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات في نسختيها جنيف وتونس. أيضا أن أهداف التنمية المستدامة متوائمة مع مخرجات القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات، وتم ربطها بشكل واضح وكيف تساهم من قبل العديد من وكالات الأمم المتحدة. أيضا وكالات الأمم المتحدة المعنية بتنفيذ مخرجات القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات بدأت العملية التحضيرية للسنة القادمة للمراجعة الدورية لمخرجات القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات WSIS +20، وهذا لا شك أنه في غاية الأهمية في الوقت الحالي. وفي نفس الوقت لابد أن نأخذ بعين الاعتبار كيف يعمل الميثاق الرقمي العالمي GDC بالتوازن مع أهداف القمة العالمية لمجتمع المعلومات للتأكد من تفادي أي أعمال أو ازدواجية بالأعمال بين هذه الأدوات الخاصة بتوظيف اتصالات تقنية المعلومات لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. شكرا السيد الرئيس، ونتطلع للعمل مع الجميع في هذا الموضوع المهم.
شكرا كثير. Egypt من فضلك.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to thank CSTD for the report presented, and extending also my thanks to the panelists for their excellent remarks and presentations. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight Egypt's unwavering commitment to the WSIS action lines and its continuous support for the efforts of the Commission of Science and Technology for Development in advancing the objectives of WSIS. Egypt has consistently demonstrated that its dedication to aligning its ICT development plans and strategies with the goals set forth by WSIS. By doing so, Egypt aims to harness the transformative power of information and communication technologies to drive inclusive socio-economic development, bridge the digital divide, and foster sustainable growth. This is clearly represented by Egypt ICT Strategy 2030. ICT 2030 strategy contributes to achieving the objectives of Egypt's Vision 2030 through building digital Egypt. These objectives entail developing the ICT infrastructure, fostering digital inclusion, achieving the transition to knowledge-based economy, building capacities and encouraging innovation. Also fighting corruption, ensuring cybersecurity, and promoting Egypt's position at the regional and international level. Egypt recognizes that the WSIS action lines provides a comprehensive framework for leveraging ICTs to address critical global challenges through its active participation in various WSIS forums and initiatives. Egypt has been actively contributing to the implementation and advancement of these action lines. Moreover, Egypt acknowledges the crucial role played by CSTD in providing guidance, expertise, and recommendations to support the implementation of WSIS outcomes. Egypt also fully supports the efforts of CSTD in carrying out its mandate and appreciate the valuable insights it brings to the table. Egypt's commitments to WSIS action lines and its collaboration with CSTD is an evident in its efforts to map its ICT development plans and strategies with the objectives of WSIS. This alignment ensures that Egypt's initiatives are in harmony with the broader global agenda, maximizing the impact and effectiveness of its ICT-related endeavors. In conclusion, Egypt firmly believes that WSIS action lines provide a powerful roadmap for leveraging ICTs to foster inclusive development and achieve sustainable goals. Egypt's steadfast support for WSIS and its close collaboration with CSTD is an example of its dedication to realizing the full potential of ICTs for the benefit of its citizen and global community. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. Are there any member states who would like to take the floor? Iran?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Do you hear me? Yeah, okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the floor. I would like to also appreciate the report by the Secretariat and the insightful presentations by the panelists, which were of very use for the participants, including myself. Mr. Chair, Iran is also committed to the action lines of the VCs, and we've provided extensive answers to the questionnaire that was distributed among member states with regard to the WSIS implementing of the action lines. The thing that draws my attention listening to the deliberations of this morning and the days before is that as technology gets more sophisticated, the issue of disparities between the developing world and the developed world in terms of technology, as well as the international cooperation, gets more and more important for the developing world. As we are also approaching and getting engaged in the negotiations on the Global Digital Compact, sort of being negotiated right now in New York, we all need to take into serious consideration the issue of bridging this digital divide between the developing and developed world. So I would like to bring into the attention of the participants this important subject. And also in this regard, I would also like to underline the significance and the negative impact of the unilateral measures, which excludes some of the members of the international community from getting access to the latest technology and information regarding the action lines and implementing the action lines of the WSIS and also the objectives of the Commission. This is something that we all should be cautious and try to remove and be active in terms of trying to eradicate this disparity among the member states. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you, Iran. Now I turn to Association for Progressive Communication. If I'm not wrong, Henriette.
Thank you very much, Chair. Henriette Esterhuizen speaking on behalf of APC.org, international membership-based civil society organization. Thank you very much to the CSTD for convening such an exciting and inclusive forum. More civil society participation would be appreciated, but there is enough for now. I just want to note that for WSIS, we should also acknowledge that there has been some failure, and I think it's good to affirm all the positive developments, all the achievements, but there are areas of failure. We still do not have meaningful connectivity for very large numbers of people and in many parts of the world. So looking at mechanisms that can be innovative, both in terms of policy and regulation and financing, particularly for community-owned local infrastructure, is very important from our perspective. And this was also noted at the ITU the latest ITU plenipotentiary. We also would like to really encourage updating of the WSIS action lines. They remain a very robust framework for implementation at national level. They often overlap with line ministries. So looking at updating them would be useful, and identifying gaps. And then I think finally, we also want to note that the IGF has been mentioned, and we support the mentions of that. In practice, at national level, many national and regional IGFs act not just as forums for discussion on internet governance, they are forums for national WSIS implementation discussions. And I think we need to consolidate that, make it more procedural, recognize it, and build on that going future, post the 20-year review, and also look at that national, regional dimension of WSIS and the IGF as a mechanism that could strengthen global digital compact implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henriette. As usual, you give always very good advices, and I think we should follow them. Unfortunately, we don't have time right now for further interventions. We are running out of time. First, I would like to turn to our speakers. Before doing that, I would like to call your attention again to the questionnaire of the CSTD, and the link will be sent to you by email. And please, those of you who haven't filled it yet, please do it. The more contributions we have, the better. Now let me turn to our list of speakers. Well, first of all, Jorge, you mentioned that WSIS is not perfect, which is a good thing, because perfect is just the enemy of the good. So I would like to have one or two sentences as concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I'll do it very, very briefly. I think that WSIS is not perfect. It's really a living being, a living architecture. And as every living being and architecture, it is evolving, it is perfectible. And I think the Global Digital Compact, the discussions we are having there on substance, are a perfect input for us to take into account and to feed it in, to update the action lines, to update the goals we have within the WSIS framework. But really, if it ain't broken, don't fix it, don't replace it, don't duplicate it. I think that would be my message.
Thank you, Jorge. Ms. Abdullah?
I think Jorge has said it very well. The main thing for us, and I mean, absolutely right, WSIS is not a perfect process, but therein lies the beauty of WSIS. There is much potential in the process. We have seen what it can do in the last 20 years. And far from it that everyone has been connected there, as I pointed out just now, there are still 2.6 billion people in the world who have never ever used the internet. And we have to make sure that not only are they connected, but they are meaningfully connected. And many of those 5.4 million are still not meaningfully connected. So there's still a lot of work to do. But if we look at this and how the anticipated GDC will come about, there will be complementarities in both. And we look forward to seeing how we can actually work to make that happen. We have to connect the dots to avoid the duplication. And as Jorge said, if it ain't broken, don't fix. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is a basic thing. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Last but not least, let me turn to Cedric from UNESCO.
Well, it seems that we're all aligned. There are many things which were said in the room, but also we do, as I said before, acknowledge also the gaps and the needs. We are aligned with what Jorge said for Switzerland, and ITU reinforced in terms of continuity of WSIS. And we do see the substantial need also for improvement. This is why we're not only speaking about WSIS plus 20, but WSIS 2.0, a form of reboot with new energy, building on the existing, and of course in coordination with, and building on the GDC output and implementing the GDC output through WSIS continues to be, it seems, a shared vision in the room. So thank you.
Thank you, Cedric. So this brings us to the end of the first part of the session. Let us give a round of applause to the panelists. Let me now turn to our informal discussion on the Global Digital Compact. The draft negotiating text of the Global Digital Compact was circulated on the 1st of April, and it's not a joke. I hope that you all had the opportunity to read it and look forward to the discussion with concrete views and inputs. But first, allow me to invite Ms. Isabel de Sola Criado, Office of the Technology Envoy of the United Nations Secretary General, to brief us on the Global Digital Compact. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much to the CSTD for inviting us to be here for this opportunity to present a briefing on the Global Digital Compact. And I have to say that this is quite intimidating after the discussion that has ensued over the last 3 days. It was my very first time at the CSTD, so I took the opportunity starting on Monday to steep myself like a tea bag into the history and the richness and the aspirations and the ambition of this August forum. And I thought quite a lot of the speakers started out with reflections on the past of where they were when the WSIS began or when the CSTD first began accompanying the process. And I made the same reflection for myself. And if I may, I thought that I might share that story as a way of breaking the ice and telling you a little bit about where I'm coming from. So in 2009, I was first secretary of El Salvador to to Portugal. I was based in Lisbon, and I had been sent there as an antenna to prepare for the Iberian American Summit on Technology and Innovation. The Portuguese, as we all know, have been leaders of this topic for quite some time and have strategically positioned themselves in many ways as a sort of bridge builder and terrain breaker. And so in 2009 in Lisbon, somebody was talking about the WSIS, and I was sent there to prepare for a summit that would take place 6 months later, and I had never worked on those topics before. I was coming from Paris. I was sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I admitted that I was very new, that this was my first time engaging with this topic. And my counterpart at the ministry said, well, don't worry. The chair of the Iberian American Summit on Technology and Innovation is also new. And I said, okay, good, then this will be okay. And I waited patiently to meet the ambassador, and he received me in his office. And again, to break the ice, I said, well, you know, I'm pleased to hear that we're learning about this topic together. I'm very new, et cetera, et cetera. And he looked at me and he said, yes, new. I've been working on this for 10 years. So I would say, yes, I'm new to this topic. And that really put things into perspective for me at the time of what it means to be new or what it means to be embarking on something. I think that we tell ourselves stories about the past, about how processes and narratives began and what they've accomplished and what challenges they've faced. And one thing I was struck by since Monday is stories about the beginning of the WSIS, going back to 2003 and 2005. And I thought that one way that we can talk about the Global Digital Compact that is coming is to say that it's a new process, but it's building on at least 20 or 25 years of milestones along the way. I've heard in the room over the past few days that this is a parallel process, or this is a New York-led discussion, or this is duplicating, and I'm not sure that that's the case. And I wonder if we could begin to talk about a shared history, a shared vision of 20, 25 years that builds on itself and that reinforces itself and draws together many efforts and initiatives over time. So with my colleagues in New York, the story of the GDC for New York begins in 2019. And I was telling them, preparing for today, that actually it begins much earlier than that, in perhaps 2003. And what's missing from some of the narrative of the WSIS is what has happened, for example, the high-level panel on digital cooperation and its report on the age of digital interdependence. And then coming from there, the roadmap on digital cooperation published in 2020, the common agenda published in 2021, preparations, of course, for the Summit of the Future. Tying these things together, I think, is the opportunity that we have together today. Very quickly to say that the Global Digital Compact process, I think, really accelerated once the co-facilitators, Sweden and Zambia, were appointed, and they opened consultations in February 2023. Many of you mentioned that you've participated and made submissions to that very rich process. So some of what was heard during that process was echoed in this room. These are some of the key themes on the screen before you. All of these have been mentioned in different ways during our discussion. So the challenge of inclusion remains salient. And there's a concern that the pace of digital technologies and their evolution will not close these divides, but will continue to widen them. Now we know that the benefits of digital technologies, they won't just come about by accident. We actually have to very purposefully design for them and then invest resources and focus on them in order for there to be this potential and impact on the SDGs. The primacy of international law and international human rights at the center of how we design and deploy digital technologies has emerged. And then the conundrum of emerging technologies, quantum computing or artificial intelligence, that are moving so quickly, but still happening at the same time as those lags in digital infrastructure, in compute, in human capacity or digital literacy, the building blocks of a thriving digital economy that are not yet in place uniformly across the world. And this is to give the audience here a flavor of what was heard and why the GDC then produces a draft as it does. So what I wanted to do in the next few slides is provide very top-line overview of some of the building blocks of the compact. I think the main idea, or perhaps the primary motivators of the compact, were to be action-oriented. This was one of the main ambitions and hopes of the Global Digital Compact, and that it would elevate the place of development, of inclusivity, of cooperation to the topmost lines of a digital agenda for the future. To that end, it has blocks that I'll go through as quickly as possible. There are objectives and cross-cutting principles. There are commitments and actions to achieve those objectives. And then there are proposals for how to implement, follow up, and review them. A few new arrangements are also proposed. I think what you'll find is that there's a genuine effort to touch on the range of issues that were identified over the years and in the consultations, and that it can be forward-looking, deliver tangible outcomes, and leverage what already exists. Let's see. So the principles are familiar. I think that they reflect much of what the WSIS introduced, what the SDGs solidified, and then what other processes that are ongoing, for example, the G20 digital economy process, which is happening as we speak here, processes at the OECD, the G7 discussions, et cetera, different forums that have brought forward digital issues have ultimately converged on some of the same principles. The current Zero Draft also introduced gender equality and environmental sustainability as cross-cutting principles. Some principles that were not included or articulated actually appear as targets and commitments later on in the draft, and I can come back to that. There are 5 main objectives, and under each objective there are clusters. The objectives, I think, attempt to be sort of holistic and then propose concrete action, especially in light of serious gaps in the achievement of the SDGs. Objective number 1 is to close the digital divide, and very quickly I can mention that it draws on targets for universal and meaningful connectivity established by the ITU. It speaks to gender digital divides and reflects the conclusions of the Commission on Status of Women 78th session. It calls for specific recognition of digital public goods, and those are some of the examples of how the GDC draws from different processes and concretizes the ambitions of many different processes in order to drive action. On objective 2, I can quickly say expanding opportunities for inclusion in the digital economy. This was a new framing, new language. The aim is to improve access to digital technology, knowledge, research, capacity, and technology transfers. It highlights the importance of regulatory environments, promotes actions to support innovation, and focuses on SMEs in developing countries as well. There's a touch point on cybersecurity under that objective. For objective 3, fostering an inclusive, open, safe, and secure digital space, there were many inputs and debate under this objective. In reflecting certain clusters or targets, the aim was to recognize the urgent need for action to prevent and eliminate bias. Reflect that child safety online has become quite an urgent topic. Highlight the roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders in fostering safety online, underscore human rights and the applicability of international law online as well as offline, etc. On objective 4, I think there was a very rich discussion here yesterday on international data governance. Some of the calls under this objective speak to the need to build shared understandings, definitions, and methodologies to make data governance interoperable. And lastly, on objective 5, the compact speaks to the new technologies and seizes the opportunity to establish the foundations for some international governance, in particular of AI. There is an emphasis in that objective to the many ways that the UN supports coherence and interoperability in regards to emerging technologies. I'll try to go more quickly. Forgive me for speaking slowly. And I've simplified this, and I have a last slide that I hope you'll like to share the complexity. So on commitments and actions, I mentioned it before, there's some specific targets where there are serious gaps in attaining the SDGs. Most of the targets draw on WSIS language or precedent. For example, universal and meaningful connectivity. I think that negotiations will allow for explicit clarification on commitments because it has been pointed out that there are different levels. In some cases, there's very specific targets and even numbers, and then in other cases, it's left slightly more vague. I think the negotiations should also clarify who does what and when. The commitments, of course, don't reflect all of the priorities, and that's because I think the member states, the co-facilitators, wish to focus on those that were priority. Yes. Let me see if there's anything more here. Yes, I mean, I wanted to mention as well that there's an interesting opportunity in the methodology of the GDC to track progress. So the modalities for follow-up are quite rigorous, and that speaks to some of the experience of other fora where it was difficult to keep pace, track accountability, monitor, evaluate, and I think some of the impetus in the language under this section on commitments and actions is speaking to those challenges directly. The follow-up and review is spread as it should be across many existing mechanisms and stakeholders. So first and foremost, it's the member states that will take the GDC commitments and implement them, translate them into their national strategies, budgets, and resourcing. The GDC makes reference as well to the need for multi-stakeholder partnerships and then recognizes how the UN agencies already are pursuing many of these objectives and providing the foundations for a tremendous amount of work to be done in their pursuit. The GDC also recognizes the WSIS and its processes as fundamental and core to the delivery of its ambitions. There are two primary new proposals. The first one is to formalize the Office of the Special Envoy on Technology in a way that allows that office to expand or continue to deepen and strengthen its role of coordinating on digital and emerging technologies. And the second important proposal is the biennial high-level review. The notion there is that this would be a way to sustain political attention and momentum on the GDC. It would also serve for knowledge exchange across these many networks, and ideally, because of its placement in every 2 years and the power to convene all of these stakeholders and different networks, that it would respond to the pace of tech change. So I was preparing for this presentation and breaking down the GDC in a simple way when I came across what the Diplo Foundation has done. So in a sense, I felt humbled by the work that they had done because this is their depiction of the GDC. And whereas I tried to keep it simple, I find that in a way this visual does it more justice. 10 principles, 5 objectives, numerous commitments, a host of stakeholders that are participating, networks of networks that are bringing forward this ambitious vision. And I would like to commend the Diplo and really encourage all of us here to draw on the research that they've done to answer this question. This is the question that I first encountered in conversation 2 months ago at the UNESCO when the GDC was not yet a zero draft. To say, how are we building? It wasn't exactly this question. The question was more as follows. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or do not duplicate. Let's not create parallel mechanisms. And sometimes I feel as if there are 2 conversations happening, one amongst the existing mechanisms and then one amongst the negotiators of the GDC, because I would humbly propose as a newcomer that this is the question we should be asking. And it's a creative one because it remains up to the negotiation now to define this further. How will we leverage the existing mechanisms? And some of the conversations over the past 3 months have yielded the ideas that I put up on the screen, and I cannot claim ownership for them. And but I will point you to the persons who shared them with me if you love them, but not if you don't like them. I won't say who gave me these ideas. You know, to take an example, the GDC has left the text open to receive the brainstorm of the WSIS Plus 20 review on how it would like to have leadership and take forward these proposals. I think the negotiators are eagerly awaiting for the process to conclude in a year's time, so that the wealth of work and investment of the WSIS is channeled in this productive way. Colleagues at the ITU, the UNCTAD, UNESCO, UNDP, so many UN agencies that have built terrific initiatives. Cedric mentioned yesterday one that caught my attention, the Prevention of Gender-Based Violence Online initiative at the UNESCO. Now, this is a clear example of a way where UNESCO is already realizing digital cooperation and offering these important training programs and prevention ideas. And what I believe is the message is, how can we do more? How do we amplify all of these efforts? Because what we're facing now, although all of the colleagues and agencies, the processes have yielded tremendous results, as many of the ministers and secretaries of state here have highlighted, we are facing some serious digital gaps, some important divides, some terrifying risks online. And thus, I believe that the call we're hearing is, how do we amplify, strengthen, expand, catalyze, build together in order to deliver a vision of digital cooperation that is more ambitious for the needs that we have today. These are upcoming milestones in the negotiation process. I wanted to draw your attention especially to the 24th of April open consultation that's taking place next week online. And of course, there will be continued opportunities for discussion and consultation. The co-facilitators and different leaders of the process will be popping up in diverse fora around the world, eager to hear the proposals and the feedback of the colleagues. So I invite you to stay engaged and perhaps assist the co-facilitators to think creatively about what it means to build together for this vision of digital cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. De Sola Criado, for your briefing. Now I open the floor for questions and comments. First, I'd like to turn to the UK for any comments.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the comprehensive presentation. We welcome co-facilitators' efforts to produce the Zero Draft of the Global Digital Compact. Rapid technological change has transformative potential to change our lives for the better, but its potential risks, when not harnessed responsibly, are becoming ever more apparent. Against this backdrop, the UK sees the Global Digital Compact as a key deliverable of the Summit of the Future. We welcome that the draft recognizes the fundamental importance of a multi-stakeholder approach to digital cooperation. All stakeholders have a role to play in building our digital future, and this guiding principle must remain at the heart of this compact. The pace of technological change and complexity of the public policy response means action will likely be needed at domestic, regional, and international levels. However, we consider that further detail and substantive discussion will be needed before establishing new permanent structures under the auspices of the UN. A key consideration will be minimizing the risks of duplication, making best use of existing activity. We will also need to give further consideration to proposals to pursue common definitions and standards through the UN, including in relation to data. We commend the focus on maximizing the availability and use of responsible, inclusive data and digital transformation, recognizing these as accelerative drivers of progress on and for the Sustainable Development Goals. We remain convinced that our starting point should be leveraging and strengthening where necessary existing mechanisms, mandates, and structures. We look forward to continuing discussions on the Global Digital Compact. Thank you.
Thank you, UK. Now I turn to Belgium on behalf of the European Union.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, je ferai cette intervention en anglais. I'm speaking on behalf of the EU and its member states. The European Union firmly believes in the necessity of forging clear and robust links between the review of the WSIS and the Global Digital Compact to ensure synergies while avoiding duplications. The zero draft of the GDC, as presented by the co-facilitators, recognizes the importance of existing frameworks and renews the commitment to the vision of WSIS and the Internet Governance Forum. It underscores the critical role of WSIS in the GDC's implementation, advocating for the adaptation of WSIS action lines to reflect the compact commitments. The EU welcomes this approach as a starting point. Moreover, the draft highlights the intrinsic connection between digital policy, human rights, and the SDGs. While we value the inclusion of a human rights cluster in the draft, the European Union calls for a greater prominence on human rights throughout the document. In the same vein, environmental sustainability should be considered throughout the document. Furthermore, we believe that the GDC must highlight the critical role of inclusive and sustainable digital transformations as a key mechanism for development. Similarly, more emphasis on the multi-stakeholder model is crucial. The multi-stakeholder approach transcends simple coordination. It is imperative that the GDC actively acknowledges and enhances the multi-stakeholder governance structures already established. These elements are indispensable enablers for achieving the SDGs and facilitating a successful and sustainable digital transition for the benefit of all. On artificial intelligence, the Zero Draft sets forth detailed and ambitious objectives. The EU seeks further clarity on their overall added value, feasibility, and funding implications at the UN level. Within the context of both the GDC and WSIS, we advocate for the recognition of a balanced, technology-neutral and risk-based approach to the governance of AI and other emerging technologies. This should include leveraging and building upon existing international processes and outputs. We stand open to discuss options for establishing an international scientific panel on AI. Overall, the Zero Draft is a welcome substantive contribution to our shared objectives, and the link between GDC and WSIS is key. We take note of the ambition of the follow-up section, which explicitly builds on existing processes and institutions and links GDC implementation to the WSIS process. At the same time, the Zero Draft proposes the creation of multiple new entities and processes within the GDC framework. As a general principle, the EU does not support new entities and processes that duplicate or erode existing ones. Instead, our primary focus should be on leadership, coordination, synergy building, and if required, the adaptation of existing structures to ensure proper follow-up and review of the GDC. Our main priority should be on defining a strong and meaningful role for the IGF, the WSIS Forum, and here the UN CSTD in the GDC follow-up and implementation process. Thank you.
Merci, Madame. Our next speaker is Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunities. I would like to congrats and appreciates the organizer for having the sessions on briefing on GDC, and it's valuable to link the Geneva and New York process. I think the coordination and synergy is important for our way forward. I would like to highlight several points and would like to seek more clarification and input if it's possible. Regarding the chapter for the zero draft of the GDC, we see that on the objective number 2, expand opportunity for inclusion in the digital economy. But then the way I see it at the zero draft, it's more as well for related to the objective number 1 for the connectivity instead of the digital economy itself. The importance of digital economy, for example, SMEs, and then the importance of addressing the current gap of digital economy, and then the importance of supporting developing countries, especially LDCs, for example, doesn't like really reflects on this one. And then I would also like to ask about the sections on follow-up and reviews regarding the way I'm reading it. It's more the detail on like AI issues, but not on the data and digital issues. But on AI, you have like so detail regarding, for example, how to mobilize finance, and then we also have target as well, and then the roadmap is so clear as well. I just also want to maybe seek more input, like is there any reason behind it, or if you could elaborate more on this. That's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. I would like to ask the interpreters for 10 more minutes. We still have intervention from the floor, and I would like to have some reply to the questions. Can I have it? Cuba.
Sí, gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos la convocatoria a estas discusiones informales y también a la representante de la Oficina del Enviado Especial del Secretario General por su presentación. Coincidimos en que la ONU tiene un rol central en la promoción del uso pacífico de las tecnologías emergentes y en la plena realización de sus beneficios para el desarrollo y bienestar de la humanidad. Creo que ha quedado claro del debate y de la presentación que la OIT, la CCTD y la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de la Información han sido claves en avanzar los objetivos de desarrollo. El pacto debe dar seguimiento a esta intencionalidad y fomentar la cooperación internacional como máxima prioridad. En las discusiones para su adopción, nuestra delegación aboga por garantizar las sinergias y evitar la duplicación entre las diversas entidades y procesos del sistema de las Naciones Unidas y más allá del sistema también. Este sentimiento fue capturado en la Declaración de La Habana sobre retos actuales del desarrollo, papel de la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación, que fue adoptada por el G77 el pasado septiembre. Consideramos que el pacto debe refrendar el principio que todos los gobiernos deben tener un igual cometido y responsabilidad para la gobernanza de Internet. Asimismo, debe recordar que la regulación de las políticas públicas relacionadas con Internet son un derecho soberano de los Estados, como se recoge en la Agenda de Túnez. El Pacto de Igualdad Digital debe mantener un balance entre los pilares de las Naciones Unidas que impacta, a saber, el desarrollo y los derechos humanos. A su vez, debe mantener balance en el tratamiento de estos últimos, evitando otorgar preponderancia a unos derechos sobre otros, dado su carácter indivisible. El pacto También debe promover la materialización del mecanismo intergubernamental para la gobernanza de Internet, reconocido como cooperación aumentada en el párrafo 69 de la Agenda de Túnez. Para nuestra delegación, los acuerdos que siguen sin ser cumplidos de la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de la Información y otros temas de interés de los países en desarrollo deben tener prioridad en el pacto y en el proceso de revisión de la CMCI más 20 el año próximo. Por ello, en adición a los elementos que ya hemos señalado, consideramos que el pacto debe, en primer lugar, retomar los lenguajes de Ginebra y Túnez sobre la participación de los actores según sus respectivas capacidades y responsabilidades. Debe reconocer la existencia de la brecha digital como consta en el borrador 0, pero debe ir más allá y debe explícitamente reconocer los retos que esta brecha implica para los países en desarrollo, a los que se le debe brindar asistencia técnica especializada y transferencia de tecnologías según sus prioridades. Se debe garantizar el liderazgo de las Naciones Unidas como organización multilateral por excelencia en la gobernanza de la inteligencia artificial y, como sugerido, también se debe definir más claramente la relación y los vínculos entre la CMCI y el pacto, la Cumbre Mundial de la Sociedad de Información y el pacto, incluido a nivel institucional. El foro de la cumbre, la OIT y la CCTD tienen un rol que jugar en la futura implementación del pacto, como fuera resaltado. En este sentido, nos unimos a las otras voces en la sala en reiterar la importancia de no duplicar mandatos y esfuerzos y evitar la creación superflua de nuevas estructuras. Nuestra delegación continuará interactuando en capacidad nacional y como miembro activo del Grupo de los 77 y China en el proceso de consultas intergubernamentales sobre el pacto. Y muchas gracias nuevamente. Gracias a los traductores también.
Thank you. I have been told that we have 5 more minutes. And I have 3 interventions and 1 reply. So I would like to ask the Switzerland and Russian Federation and Saudi Arabia to try to be brief. Switzerland.
Peter, if you allow me, I will speak for Switzerland. Thanks for holding the card out. Yeah, thank you very much, Isabel, for this presentation and for the information. I think on the historical part, there was kind of a missing link. The missing link between the IGF and then, like 13 years later, came the high-level panel on digital cooperation. Let me perhaps give you my view on what the missing link was, because we were here 6 years ago during the IGF that happened here in Geneva, in the 2017 IGF in December, which was presided over by our president then, Ms. Doris Leuthard, and she chaired a roundtable that talked about the future of international global digital cooperation. And one of the messages coming out of that roundtable was that we needed to boost our digital cooperation. So this was the beginning. This is where the high-level panel on digital cooperation was born, which then was taken up as an idea by Guterres, Secretary General Guterres, who was coming into the office very recently. So really the digital cooperation effort and what later became the Global Digital Compact, which is now being negotiated, came out of the IGF, so came out of WSIS. And what I think the room is saying very clearly is that we look forward to the boost on substance that the GDC will provide us, but that we have to fold in the implementation and the follow-up into WSIS, which is where the GDC was born. So I think that message has to come across at some point of time clearly, also with those holding the pen of the GDC. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland, for the clarification. Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair, for giving the floor. I will speak in English to be briefly as possible. In general, we note the importance of the work carried out at the UN to assess the achievement of SDG using ICT and new emerging technologies. Taking into account the previous discussion that GDC should be the result of an intergovernmental negotiation process, during which the modalities of its implementation should be agreed upon. And the appearance of draft of this document, I mean GDC, in form of prepared receipt is surprising. The document gives the impression of the intention to reform the existing architecture of international cooperation in the field of ICT, instead of strengthening it. The role of ICT, including in the context of the implementation of SDGs, is determined by the result of Geneva and Tunis phases of the WSIS. As previously stated, the GDC should find its place for the filling existing gaps in cooperation in the digital sphere, avoiding duplication of activities in the relevant international organization of the UN system. This document practically doesn't take into account the results of the activities of international processes and specialized intergovernmental organizations. We know that it would be important to preserve the architecture of multilateral cooperation in the digital sphere, observing this existing balance of interests. Last but not least, the GDC should provide specific mechanism for its implementation, taking into account national approaches in the field of ICT and emerging technologies management. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Russia. Our last speaker will be Saudi Arabia. I apologize for all others who would have liked to take the floor. Please submit your questions to the Secretariat, which will be forwarded to the Office of the Technology Envoy, and probably you will receive the reply, and we shall make it public. Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman, for providing us the chance to provide some inputs on such critical subject. And of course, thanks to representative from the Tech Envoy, and thanks also for sharing her story, beginning story about international cooperation. And of course, each one of us maybe have more dramatic story about how we start the beginning, how we engaged on such international collaboration coming from different background. We perceive the GDC as a positive tool to encourage international collaboration when it comes to the digital issues and how can bridge the different digital divides. So it's a positive tool. It's a positive way forward to achieve our common goals. We already provide our inputs along with different colleagues to the negotiation process. But it's good to reiterate the importance of to build on existing processes, especially during this time. I mean, there is, as everyone knows, there is financial crisis, especially for the UN agencies, and it's good to utilize the existing resources, human and financial resources, to achieve the goals of the GDCs. Also, we would like to emphasize on the roles of specialized agency, UN specialized agency that are already engaged on the subject that mentioned the GDC, the ITU, UNESCO, the different organizations that, in current days, they are preparing, the follow-up of the WSIS. And we think, during the WSIS +20 review process, there should be, some emphasis on how the GDC could be, tackled from the scope of the WSIS process. That will lead to maybe the final point when it comes to the coordination, the follow-up. There is a coordination and the follow-up process regarding the WSIS, and it's good, to take a second look at how could we utilize these processes, the follow-up and the coordination that, for example, the CSTD and the other forms, how that could be utilized by the GDC. So this is in short, and I thank you so much for providing the chance. And if I can ask if it's possible to share the presentation that already presented by the representative of the COM5.
Thank you, Saudi Arabia. I believe the presentation will be also posted on the CSTD website. As I told you, we may lose our interpretation. It's gone already. So we lost the interpretation, but we didn't lose our enthusiasm and determination to achieve some really good result. So I turn to Isabel for some reply.
Sure, thank you. I'll be very, very brief in the interests of lunchtime. And I welcome all of this feedback, which I've done my best to note down and transmit like a red phone to New York, so that the co-facilitators there can take into account these concerns, the enthusiasm and questions that are being raised. I can quickly say a few points. So to the colleague from Cuba, the GDC frames development as and human rights as interdependent, giving them both an equal primacy of place throughout the document. And I can tell by the look on your face that it can be improved. And we would welcome ideas in that regard. To the question from the colleague from Indonesia, I'll transmit this observation of where is the place of connectivity? Is it about Objective 1, closing SDG gaps, or is it about the digital economy? I wonder if it might be both. A very careful exercise was done to connect each SDG, where relevant, to these objectives and targets and commitments, to make it more explicit in which ways the agenda of the GDC drives those gaps or closes those gaps and drives SDG accomplishment. But one feedback that has been heard in other fora is the need to make clarifications. And my daughter was looking at my presentation and she said, oh, it's 0, then you guys did really bad, it's 0. And I said, no, 0 means we're starting. This is a document that needs to be improved, and there's plenty of room for clarification. To comments about avoiding duplication, building on existing processes, at times it seems that there's different interpretations of the text, and thus that points to the need for greater clarity and discussion. The colleague from Belgium was, on behalf of the European Union, pointed to the GDC's distinct effort to point out how existing mechanisms and different agencies would deliver on its ambition. And then in other areas, it feels as if the GDC is duplicating or opacar. So how do we say in English? Opacar would be to overshadow some of the existing mechanisms. And I take that to heart and will transmit your remarks about how to make that more forthcoming, that the intention of the GDC is not to duplicate or fix. Rather, I think it's a call to do more, to do bigger, to do stronger, to catalyze, to up the ante, I guess, given the scale of the challenge that is at hand. And my last point would be to say, there's several weeks of negotiations looming ahead of us, and there's a great need for creativity. I believe it was the colleague from Indonesia that pointed out, why is there a difference in the granularity of the artificial intelligence proposals versus some of the other proposals? And the reason for that is that the co-facilitators received some very creative and specific proposals from the Secretary General's high-level advisory body on AI. They were told by the Secretary General the following. They were told, be bold, be ambitious, be creative. And because very few of them really are UN people, they're from civil society, academia. They said, okay, let's be creative. And they delivered creative ideas. And I believe what the co-facilitators have asked on several occasions is send us proposals, language. How do we make this more granular? How can we work off the basis of new language or interesting ideas and thus have a discussion, negotiate, and arrive at a consensus that is acceptable to all and that advances this vision. So I encourage everyone in the coming weeks to engage and think creatively, assist the process to arrive at that, all of the improvements that are needed. And thank you again for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Carol, and I'm certain that we are going to collaborate and for achieving our common goals. Now, I think that brings to an end the morning session. We will resume at 3 p.m. this afternoon to take up the presentation. Sorry, is it? Oh. So we resume at 3 p.m. this afternoon to take up the presentation of reports on science, technology, and innovation policy reviews and technology assessment. I have to announce, yes, I see you, Japan, but I'm going to do it. There will be a lunchtime side event starting at 1:30 on UNCTAD Okayama University Joint Research and Training Program. This will take place in room 21. 22. 22. It's almost. Well, next to it. So you have to go down 2 floors. The meeting. Oh, there will be a lunch as well, so please come. So the meeting is adjourned.